Hello and welcome to the Study Legal English YouTube channel. Welcome back if you are a regular, and welcome if it's your first time here. I'm Louise, and today we're diving into 10 more regular verbs that you need to know as a legal professional. These verbs are essential for understanding contracts, court proceedings, legal documents. And you will notice this is part 2. Part 1 was last week. You can check it out by clicking up at the top here, or the link will be in the description below the video. Stick around to the end, because at the end of this video, there is going to be a quiz to test your knowledge. Head to studylegalenglish.com/episode 153 to download the slide handout for this episode. As always, please like this video, subscribe to my channel, share this with a friend, a colleague. It really helps me to grow my channel. So thank you. So are you ready? Let's go. The first verb, the first regular verb, is to challenge. In the past simple, it's challenged. The past participle is also challenged. We're just adding ed to all of these verbs, right? The definition is to question something. For example, to question the legality of something or even the validity of something. Let's look at an example sentence. The claimant challenged the validity of the contract. The claimant basically was questioning whether the contract was indeed valid or not. They were challenging it. All right, let's move on to number 2, to enforce. To enforce, in the past simple, enforced. The past participle is also enforced. Let's look at the definition. This means to compel compliance with a law or agreement, to try to use something, to use the force of the law. Let's look at an example sentence. The contract was enforced by a court order. Perhaps a party wasn't following the contract, wasn't performing their obligations under the contract, and the court ordered that party to actually fulfill their obligations. Okay, so in this situation, the court order said to a party, you must comply. You must perform the contract. Okay, let's look at number 3. To execute. In the past, executed. In the past participle, it's also executed. Okay? So what does it mean in legal English? Of course, all of these definitions are for legal English, not general English. The definition: to complete the formalities for a document to become legally valid. This is used especially for contracts, to execute a contract, to make sure that the contract becomes legally valid. This usually means that you sign it in the correct way. Okay? For example, the parties executed the agreement in the presence of witnesses. Perhaps they needed witnesses present to sign the agreement in order for it to be executed, right? In order for it to become legally valid. Okay? All right. Number 4, to interpret. To interpret, the past simple, interpreted. The past participle is also interpreted. What does it mean? It means to explain or determine the meaning of something. Okay, you are finding the meaning of something. Okay, this is the same in general English actually, okay, but we use it a lot also in legal English. An example sentence is, this contract clause could be interpreted in different ways due to its ambiguous wording. Perhaps the wording of the contract clause is not very clear, it's not precise, and therefore one party could argue that it means a particular thing, and on the other hand, the other party could argue that it means something else. It can be interpreted, it can be determined, analysed and explained in different ways. All right, let's move on to number 5, to negotiate. To negotiate, and in the past simple, negotiated. In the past participle, also negotiated. The definition: to discuss terms, to reach an agreement, right? You probably know what to negotiate means. Let's look at an example sentence. The lawyer negotiated a favourable settlement for their client. It's quite a lot of legal English vocabulary, even in that sentence. Remember that a settlement is usually a resolution. It's a type of agreement to resolve a dispute. Usually this is happening when two parties are in dispute, and instead of going to trial or instead of reaching the end of a trial, they are able to settle outside of court. They're able to reach an agreement to resolve the dispute outside of court. In this particular example sentence, they were able to reach that agreement through negotiation, through discussion, in order to reach an agreement. Okay? And favourable means it is positive. It is in favour of the client here. Okay. All right. Number 6, to resolve. In the past, resolved. In the past simple. And in the past participle, also resolved. The definition: to find a solution to a dispute or problem. Okay. To resolve. It's very similar to settle. Let's have a look at an example sentence. The parties resolved the dispute using mediation. The parties were able to come to some kind of solution to end the dispute. And in this situation, they used mediation, a sort of process of negotiation, but when there is an impartial and independent third party called a mediator who facilitates the parties to reach an agreement. Okay, let's look at number 7. To advise. Okay, it's the S here has got a bit of a Z sound. In the past, it is advised and advised. Okay, advised, advise, past simple and the past participle. The definition: to offer recommendations, to suggest, to guide, right? You are probably advising your clients as a lawyer. You know, that's the main part of your work, right? So an example sentence: the lawyer advised the client on their legal options. The lawyer gave advice to the client. Okay. All right, let's move on to number 8, to protect. To protect, in the past protected, in the past simple, and in the past participle also protected. The definition: to safeguard from harm or loss. It's also used in general English, but you also will use this a lot in legal English. It doesn't have a different meaning in legal English here. However, it is a verb that could be used quite a lot by legal professionals. An example sentence is: this agreement protects the intellectual property of both parties. Okay, this agreement protects, it safeguards the IP, the intellectual property, the property which is intangible, right, of both parties, the two sides involved in the agreement. All right, let's look at number 9, to construe. To construe. In the past, this is construed, in the past simple, and in the past participle, it is also construed. Perhaps you've heard this verb, perhaps you've seen it, or perhaps it's new, okay? It is not to construct. To construct is a different verb, right? Let's have a look at the definition. This is to find the meaning of a sentence or a passage, such as a law or wording in a contract clause. And this is often an activity which is done by the courts. The courts are, in a sense, interpreting the law. They are construing it. Okay? An example sentence: when construing a contract clause, the court will take into account the parties' intentions. So if there is an ambiguous contract clause where one party is arguing that it means one particular thing, the other party is saying that it means something else, the court has to construe this particular clause. And how do they do that? They probably look at the contract as a whole. They look at the wording of that particular clause, and they probably also take into account if there's a recitals section which talks about the intention of the parties, the background of the deal. Okay. All right, let's move on to number 10. Number 10, to review, reviewed, reviewed in the past simple and the past participle there. Okay, so a definition: to consider, to check something carefully, to see if it could be improved. Again, this word is used a lot in general English. It is also used with the same meaning here in legal English by legal professionals, especially when you're dealing with contracts. You probably have to review contracts frequently if you are a commercial lawyer, right? Let's look at an example sentence. The lawyer reviewed the contract before making amendments. You had to check the contract to see, do we agree with this? Do we not agree with this? And then suggest amendments for the other side, again, to review those amendments and to either accept or reject those amendments. All right, so let's now do the important part. It is now time to practice. So let's check if you can remember the definitions of these verbs, okay? Of course, you know that they all conjugate with ed at the end for the past simple, for the past participle. So that's the easy part. I don't need to ask you questions about that. But here you can see, let's check your understanding of the meaning of these words. You can see on the screen here, you've got the verbs on the left, you've got definitions on the right, and the definitions are mixed up. They are not in the correct order. Okay, so I'm going to give you a little bit of time to check and to do this exercise. You might want to pause the video, okay? And then we're going to go through the answers together. All right? Let's go through the answers. All right, we've got to challenge. To challenge, right? That was which one? What did you say? It's B, to question the legality or validity of something. Okay, then we've got number 2, to enforce. To enforce. Really important word in legal English, to enforce. To compel compliance with a law or agreement. All right, to execute. You want to be executing your contracts, right? To complete the formalities for a document to become legally valid. Number 4, to interpret. To interpret, quite similar to construe, right? To explain or determine the meaning of something, you might need to interpret a contract clause, for example. Okay, to negotiate. I expect you are negotiating yourselves if you deal with contracts, if you're a commercial lawyer. F, to discuss terms, to reach an agreement. You might also be negotiating settlements, right? If you deal a lot with litigation, if you are a contentious lawyer dealing with contentious matters. Number 6, to resolve. To resolve. To resolve, to find a solution to a dispute or problem. You want to resolve matters, right? Number 7, to advise, to offer recommendations, suggestions, guidance. This is, a really essential part of a lawyer's work, is advising clients. Number 8, to protect. You want to protect your clients from loss, to safeguard from harm or loss, right? You want a contract that protects your client from legal risk, for example. Number 9, to construe, quite similar to interpret, to find the meaning of a sentence or passage, especially by the courts, right? Remember, the courts are construing the law and construing the meaning of contracts, for example, in court cases. To review, to consider, to check something carefully, to see if it could be improved. You're performing a contract review. You are reviewing contracts, probably quite a lot, I imagine. Okay. All right. So now this is the important question. Great job, everyone. How many did you get correct? Let me know in the comment section below, and why don't you try to use some of these irregular verbs using either the past simple or the past participle to make your own sentences to practice. Remember, practice makes perfect. Okay, so remember, if you found this video useful, give it a thumbs up, do like it. Don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification button to be notified of future episodes. You can join my Facebook group, Study Legal English Facebook group on Facebook, obviously. Follow me on Instagram. My account is @LegalEnglisher. So thanks for watching and see you next time.